My new parts came in after about 3 weeks. Don't have everything. I still got to find some bolts to go through these. And I got these hangers. I was calling them boxes. I got these sitting in here. And they got these long oval shaped holes that arm goes in there, and that hole that I pointed at on the arm, I said I have to get bolts. There's a big washer that goes around the outside of this on both sides. That bolt goes through that, and then you adjust your alignment once you're satisfied with where the alignment is. Of course, that's after this box is welded on to the frame. Then you tighten those bolts down, check your alignment again, and if everything looks good, you weld those big washers on here where they are, and then the bolt can't slide around very much inside that washer unless you get washers with the holes too big. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find washers big enough and thick enough for that. If I can't, I'll just have to cut them out of some scrap. So I got plenty of scrap metal, all different sizes. Like these bars right here, they're just some pieces that I cut some stuff out of, and they were sitting here. But I've got them scattered all over the shop because I get those free on my where I deliver at. I get stuff like that they throw in the scrap dumpster, and it falls on the ground, and it sits there and it sits there. Eventually someone will pick it up and take it with them, or throw it back in the dumpster. I got permission to grab stuff like that, and so I got that here. So I may cut those out by hand. So what I'm going to do now, I'm getting set up to do a little bit of air arc on these sloppy welds I did, filling in these rust holes. I'm going to trim this back down a little bit flatter with the air arc, and I got to do it on both sides. And then I've got to I got to go to the front axle. That was the middle axle that's starting to rust out too, but that I'm patching those rust holes over there. So where I cut those boxes off here, I never got around to trimming this down flat and smooth, so I'm going to air arc some of this a little bit more, and then I air arced it enough to knock these boxes off with a hammer, and had to use a torch on some of it. So we'll just get this smoothed down and get it flat so that I can weld on both sides. We got to do that over there too, just on the frame there, get that stuff down flat and smooth and clean so I can weld those boxes on. I've got this just about done where I need to get that to weld that box on there. This side here, there's a hole here, and I'm not really worried about it because it's not exposed. The weld's going to go here, and like I said a few times already, I only need this trailer for about 5 years, and then after that it'll probably end up getting scrapped. So I took the air arc and I burned that weld off, and I burned this area down here enough to where it looked like it was almost level, and then I took the grinder here and finished it off, got it level, and I'm gonna do that. The air arc is done here and here, and I'm going to start grinding on this. Let me come back out on the side here for a second. Okay, before I started cutting that off of there, I cut a groove with a grinder right here, and that was right even with the original weld underneath there, and another one on this end that's even with the weld on this end. Okay, now when I look under here, you'll see that the bottom of this beam is real parallel with the bottom of the beam on the other side. So I mean, we're not at at angles or anything. So I'm happy with that. That gives me an easy guide to work with. So when I come up here with this camera and we just look underneath the bottom there, we're seeing it. That's coming real close to flush. You just see just a little bit of burrs under there. Well, that's what I want to leave that there and get that with the grinder. Well, on this side, I already got that with the grinder. It's already smooth. It's already flat. Comes up even. When this side here is perfectly parallel with the beam on the other side of the truck there, other side of the trailer. So that is kind of what I'm looking for. This side, all I got to do is finish grinding this off here, and then this side's ready to put a quick tack on that box. But before I do that, I'll take measurement from the box back on that second axle there. We'll take a measurement from there and up to here and see where we come, and we'll do the same thing on the other side, and we'll balance that out like that before I start welding that box on there. The box doesn't have to be welded on completely perfect, as we do have an oval hole here that is going to leave me room for alignment. So there we go. I am checking my alignment before I weld these boxes on. I already took a measurement from the end of the frame with a tape measure all the way up to these grind marks that indicate where the original welds were. And I wrote down the measurement: 190 inches to this one, 200 1/4 to this one. And I also checked this box here, and it's exactly the same distance on both sides. This one is slightly different. It's slightly off, but even though the box was not mounted exactly the same, since it had a little room in there to adjust the alignment before you weld that washer down tight, there's room to adjust that alignment. So I don't care about the box being a 1/4 inch off or whatever it was. Back to the alignment, what I do, it's an old school trick and it works great on old equipment like this, is I eyeball down the sidewalls of the tires, just like lining up the sights on a rifle. I line up this one here with the sidewall in the front, and then down at the other end I've got a bucket sitting there on the ground, and I keep scooting that bucket in or out until the outer edge of that bucket lines up as close as I can see it lining up with both of the front and back side of this sidewall here. And when that lines up perfectly, I check it on the top of the tire, the middle, and the bottom, because there's bound to be a slight discrepancy in the shape of the tire, or even a rim, or even, really, to do this perfect, you got to rotate the tires. But I'm not going to release the brakes and go through that, because for local work, for me, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Well, none of them are anyway, and if you get them perfect, they're not going to stay. Now I do this on both sides, and then I measure. Now I can't change the alignment over there, but knowing what it is will help me decide what to do with the lining, the ones I'm mounting now. So now I'm going to measure from the frame there to the outer edge of this bucket, and we're 26 1/4 inches. Now Let me go to the other side here. And I did all of that on this side too, and we're not exactly the same, but we're pretty close for a trailer. Okay, we're 25 and 7/8, so we're 3/8 of an inch difference, which is, you're probably not going to get that close if you have it aligned at a shop, because they're not going to care about getting it perfect. They know you got no way of checking it. Well, you do have a way of checking it, but they don't know that. So anyway, I can't change that alignment. That's just the way this axle's aligned. This one is off, and I can't change it because it's welded. Too much work. It's not worth what it would take to change it. Besides, that's my tag axle. So I'm going to align the front axle to this one. So what if I'm 3/8 of an inch off? It might dog track about 1/2 an inch. No one will see that. That's fine. I'm going to align this axle exactly even. This front axle, I'll align that exactly even with this back one, or this middle axle, as best as I can before I weld those washers down in place. Now I still don't have my boxes up. These lines right here are where the original weld underneath was, and this one back here, well, that's 3/8 of an inch farther back than what the measurement is on the other side. And since the measurement on the other side goes with even numbers, 190 here and 225 there, I'm just going to copy the other side. It's going to push me forward 3/8 of an inch with the box, but I'm still adjustable inside that box for my alignment. So that's why I cut a new groove 3/8 forward, and so that's where I'm going to weld my box to. I think I've got this thing ready. I've got all the grinding done where I need to weld at. I got my lines, everything that is lining up real good and flat here on both sides, lining up with the other side when I look across there like this. And I just got to find a way to hold this thing up there. It weighs about 27 pounds, and I got a C-clamp on here as a guide for sliding this direction. I probably need to put one over here too. I got 2 of them out here, little ones. And I got to put this on something, I guess a floor jack. It's hollow on the bottom though, so I'm not sure how I'm going to get that up there. Transmission jack. It's going to be way too much trouble to dig out. It weighs 300 pounds, that big red transmission jack down there. So I'll figure out a way to get that up there and then put a little tack weld on it to hold it in place in case I got to break it loose and move it. I got it up there, and it's real fragile. It's almost like setting a mouse trap. And I just got to tap it in just a little bit over here on this side, and a little bit less on this side, until this is flat flush with the edge of the frame here. And then I'm going to put a little tack weld right here in the middle, and then I'm going to go and check all the way around it, make sure everything looks good, and then I'll put another tack on the inside, on the other side there. Well, I'm set up to put that tack on, but I'm not going to tack it on the outside first. I'm going to tack it on the inside first, and the reason why is because where the inside is butting up against, it could need another, maybe a 32nd of an inch ground off, and it's going to take a while to do that, and I'm already set up here. So instead of taking all this apart and grinding all that down, I'm just going to put my tack on the inside, and then when it cools, we'll let this down ever so slightly and get that slight little gap in between here. It'll be a really slight gap, and then we'll weld this side up, and that'll make up that difference. And really it doesn't matter because this hole is so much bigger than the where the bolt goes through onto that arm anyway, so this box doesn't have to be 100% perfect. We already know some of these boxes are mounted like 3/8 of an inch out of alignment, so we're getting it, I'm getting it a lot closer than what the factory did. Well, I got my first tack on the inside, about an inch long, and we're going to go on the outside, and like I said, we'll let the jack down. Got this side welded on, and got the front welded on. Had to weld up here and build this down a little bit to meet that because we had a gap there. And same thing over here, and I'm going to do it here. I haven't done it yet. Now I'm getting ready to burn some of this weld off of here. I got 4 of them, one here, one on the back side, and then on the other end as well. And that is so that when I put that arm on here, that saddle has as smooth and clean a place to ride on, so that I can weld it on once I get my alignment where I want it. I got the arm that goes on this side sitting on that mover's dolly, and I dug out one of these transmission jacks. I got the little one out, the one that I used for a clutch jack, for those of you that saw my video changing the clutch on the truck. I'm going to see if I can use this to position that dolly or that arm to get it installed. I got to have a good place to ground this clamp to, so I can use that air arc and the welder when it's time to weld that arm onto this thing here. And so I've picked one of these brake chamber mounts that's solidly welded onto this axle tube. I'm going to grind a clean spot off of this on both sides if I can. I'm going to try to get to both sides of that, and then use my vice grip clamp. It's my favorite ground clamp. It holds on tight, and it breaks through rust and paint and whatnot. Of course, this is way too much rust. We have to grind that off. But like I've mentioned in other videos before, when you're electric welding or electric burning, whatever, you don't want to run your arc through bearings or anything, so you would never put it on this, because it's handy, because it's going to go through the bearings in the hub to get to the spindle, and then to get to the axle shaft or the axle housing. And so you don't ever want to have electric running through your bearings. Now if it were just lights or something, that doesn't matter, that wouldn't hurt anything, but when you're pulling heavy amperage to burn metal, no way. You never want to go through bearings or bushings. You want to have your ground clamp directly on something that is either part of or welded to the part that you're working on.